It's where my husband and I started our company. It's where we grew our business. It's where we were blessed to be able to be acquired. It's also where I've put down roots and worked in philanthropy. Worked as a volunteer caseworker for MES Ministries, helped the Wellstar Foundation raise money to be able to fight cancer and do all the good things that they do there. I'm asking for your vote for Congress because I think it's time to send a fresh perspective to Washington, D.C. It's time to send somebody who's going to genuinely work for the interest of this district, but most importantly, to work for you.
Thank you, ma'am. And now, Edward.
Lindsey.
Well, I also want to echo my thanks for you being here, and I also want to thank our host for putting this all together. This is a great way to find out where the various candidates stand. My name is Ed Lindsey. I'm a state representative. I'm a leader in the Georgia House who has a solid track record as a Georgia conservative who gets the job done. I've been able to show over the years what you can do with hard work and persistence. If you look at some of the key issues that we faced over the last decade, you'll see my fingerprints on it. You'll see my fingerprints on school choice, on attacking Obamacare, on going after a balanced budget amendment, on taking on Medicaid fraud, on taking on open government and making sure that your voice gets heard. I've worked very hard on those areas because I understand that my job is to reflect your views. I look forward to this discussion. I look forward to earning your vote. It's www.edlindsey.us. Thank you.
Ladies and gentlemen, I'll ask you also to please hold your applause until the end of this presentation. That gives everybody a fair shake. Now, Barr, please.
Thank you. Friends, there are 5 other men and women on the stage with me this evening. And even though we are all vying for your votes and the votes of others in the 11th District to send us to the Congress of the United States of America, not one of these 5 men and women up here is my enemy. Not one of them is your enemy. Not one of these 5 men and women are the enemy of America. Let us not lose sight of the fact that the enemy is not here. The enemy is in Washington. It's Nancy Pelosi. It's Barack Obama. It's Chuck Schumer. It's Harry Reid. It's the liberals up there who are trying to turn Reagan country into Obama country. And we cannot afford to send novices or rookies to Washington with the stakes as high as they are right now to fight them and win. The only person up here that has the experience, the proven record of fighting the liberals and beating them on their home turf, which is Washington, D.C., is myself. I ask for your vote for Bob Barr to represent the 11th District in the Congress of the United States of America to fight and beat the liberals once again.
Thank you, sir. And now, Mr. Loudermilk.
Well, thank you all for being here tonight. Your involvement here shows that you care. And there's something that I care very deeply about, and that's my family. And standing in the back of the room is my wife of 31 years, Desiree. We met when I was working as a construction laborer in Alaska. Yeah, I'm a native Georgian, moved to Alaska to work as a construction laborer after graduating high school. Now there's something that's very meaningful to both of us. Our oldest son and his wife are about to give us, with any day now, our first grandchild. When I think about when that girl is born, what she's going to be facing are challenges greater than anything that we faced as we were growing up. A massive debt of $18 trillion. She's going to be covering $60,000 of that herself, and she had nothing to do with it. A loss of liberties and freedoms, and a moral direction in this nation that is totally off track. Why am I running for Congress? It's simple. Because our children and grandchildren deserve better than what we're passing on to them.
Thank you, sir. Mr. Levene.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. I'm Alan Levene. I'm a naturalized American citizen. I've been in this country since 1970. And have been a citizen for about 40 years now. I love this country, and I love this flag. This flag means more to me, I think, that because I'm an outsider looking in, than it means to you for the people who were born here. It's very important to me. About 3 months ago, I had a call from a Washington reporter, and he said to me, he said, "Why is it you are the talk of Washington?" And I said, "Well, because I have solutions." He said, "You haven't had elected office before, been in elected office before. You've kind of basically been an unknown, and yet you have traction in Washington. How is it?" So we talked for 20 minutes, and he wrote a nice article. I have national exposure, but I'll talk about that later on. I have solutions, not just a hyperbole, solutions. I'm Alan Levene. Thank you.
Larry Mrozinski.
Well, first, KBA, thank you very much. This is a wonderful venue to put on. Ladies and gentlemen, for 3 decades, I fought for America. I was across the table from the Adolf Putins in the State Department. And with my family, my wife and our 4 children, newborn granddaughter born on February 6th, I want to tell you that there's a lot at stake. But when you look at this race, every 2 to 4 to 6 years, close your eyes, listen to the words, read, and see where people have been, because character has fingerprints. So for 3 days I fought for you in America. I can tell you, yeah, I'm not accepting congressional retirement. Others will not do that. Yes, I will self-term limit myself. Others will not commit. But I'll guarantee you this. You're going to get the fidelity and the character out of Colonel Mrozinski as a congressman in the halls of Congress. We'll take it back. And together, I want you to believe in Representative Gunner. ColonelLarry.com. Let's take it back together.
Thank you all very much. What we'll do now is I'll ask you a series of questions. You'll have 1 minute to respond. Let's begin with what you believe is the single greatest challenge that we face as a nation, as a community here in Georgia and in Cobb County. And what do you plan to do to address it? What's that one thing that's on your agenda? We'll begin with Ed Lindsey.
Thank you very much. The single greatest threat is the national debt. Right now we are over $17 trillion and we're quickly approaching $18 trillion. To give you an idea of how fast it's grown, in 1982 was when we crossed over and went to $1 trillion. It creates a crisis for us on several different levels. Fiscally, of course, it's a rate of debt that we simply cannot sustain in the long run. We must do something about it. Number 2, it poses a direct threat to our civil liberties when you have a national government that's able to write blank checks and not have to have anything called judgment in terms of deciding what priorities. Number 3, it's a national security problem, given the fact that a lot of foreign countries are now buying our debt. The solution, the short-term solution in the next 10 seconds, is the passage of a balanced budget amendment, which I have already worked on here in Georgia with a convention of the states that I passed this year, and I'll work even harder for a balanced budget amendment in Congress. Thank you all very much.
Barr.
Thank you. I'd like to say that the answer to that question, the most important and most serious problem facing the people of the 11th District in Georgia can be summed up in just one word, but I'll take 2. Barack Obama. This is a president who has no earthly idea how the real world operates. Not only does he have no real earthly idea how the real world operates out there in the free market that used to be America, and in communities all across this country, he has no idea what it means to the men and women who wear the uniform, who have worn the uniform, who are serving us, who have served us, to understand as they do, but he doesn't. Duty, honor, country. That is being taken away from us, whether it is the national debt, whether it is the overregulation of businesses in communities such as the city of Kennesaw here in the county of Cobb County. The federal government, with this president in particular, is taking so much power from we as individuals, we as businesses, we as communities, that it is posing a danger to the fabric of this country. We have to fight him and we have to beat him.
Thank you, Mr. Barr. Mr. Loudermilk.
There's a lot of issues that we're facing. The single most pressing issue that we're facing is the national debt, $18 trillion. To give you an idea how much $18 trillion is, if you go back to the birth of Christ, deposit $16,000 in the bank every 60 seconds. Every 60 seconds since the birth of Christ till today, you still wouldn't have $18 trillion. And our children, our grandchildren are being forced to pay that. That is a national security issue. Just the interest payment that we made on the debt last fiscal year was enough to buy 2,700 F-35 fighter planes. And they cost $151 million apiece. It must be addressed, and it must be addressed now. Congress must be forced to live within its means. I'm a small business owner. I can't stay in business if I don't spend less than what I bring in. A constitutional amendment requiring a balanced budget is the only method that will force Congress to live within its means.
Mr. Levene.
Well, obviously, our dire economic straits are of key importance to everybody here. On NBC Nightly News over the past few weeks, they have announced, or the presenter said that 8 in 9 unemployed Americans would never get another full-time job. He said that 36% of working families have less than $1,000 in savings. That's a disaster. The solution is not a term limits amendment. It's not a balanced budget amendment. It isn't a constitutional convention as mentioned by the other candidates here. The reason being is that all the candidates forever are asking for these, that they're going to go to Washington, they're going to do these. These things just don't happen. There's been 11,500 attempts to have a amendment to the Constitution. Very few ever passed. The last one took 202 years. The solution is increasing our GDP.
Thank you, sir. And Mr. Mrozinski, Colonel.
Well, it's a great question. Of course, balanced budget amendment, don't raise the debt ceiling. National Energy Plan. Ladies and gentlemen, how did we get here? Very simply, it's a leadership problem. You had 1994 contract with America, and included term limits, and what did they do? Didn't work on it. We have a leadership problem. We're all going to go back, either one of us are all going back as freshmen. Because when Mr. Boehner guarantees somebody in our district something, there's something wrong with Washington, D.C. Everyone here knows that it's a leadership problem. And what we need to do, if you go to colonellarry.com, you'll go there and you'll see the solutions written, not sound bites. Look on the back of the card. We need to think differently, not act the way others want us to. Oh yes, we'll take it back. The establishment is there. All we have to do is vote. And vote in your heart and you will know what's right. Let's take it back. I'll do that for you.
Ms. Pridemore.
It's the overall size of the federal government. I believe that we need people in Congress that have operated businesses, that understand how to balance books. There have been times in my life when, well, frankly, I signed the front of a paycheck when I couldn't sign the back of one. And I think that you need to have people that will apply that same type of principle set to government. It's what I did at the state as executive director of the Governor's Office of Workforce Development. Employ common sense business principles to be able to shrink the size of government. With $17 trillion in debt, that debt exists because our federal government has gotten too large. 61% of that budget is made up solely of social services programs, of which 44% is Medicare, Medicaid, and Social Security. I argue that we look at the administration and the overhead costs of all programs and look for an opportunity to be able to cut there first.
What is your plan for rejecting or embracing, and I say that with half a smile, the Affordable Care Act? Please tell us what your specific plan is to reject or embrace the Affordable Care Act. Mr. Barr.
Now, the broad picture, take Obamacare, stab it, shoot it, dismember it, burn it, scatter its ashes to the four corners of the world, and then we can start over again by dismantling the limitations, the roadblocks, and the impediments that government, oftentimes in conjunction with large corporations, have placed between doctors and patients and between patients and insurance companies. In terms of removing some of those barriers until we can get to the point, hopefully in January of 2017, with a Republican Senate that we will elect this year and a Republican President that we will elect in 2016. Until we get there to do away with Obamacare, lock, stock, and barrel, what we need to do is we need to be nibbling away at it through the appropriations process, appropriations limitations on specific aspects of Obamacare, and we need to be challenging it in court. Congress can do that. Congress can do it. We the people can do it. We need to do it now.
Mr. Loudermilk.
Just a few days ago, I visited a friend, a small business owner who was about to have triple bypass surgery. He was laying in the hospital bed. He looked at me, he said, "I don't have insurance. I'm a business owner. Because of Obamacare, I lost my insurance. Tried to apply under Obamacare and they denied me because I didn't make enough money." The hospital told him that if he paid cash, it would be 79% less. Section 10,104 of Obamacare exempts direct primary care, which is cash payment for services. We need to be proactive. We need to repeal Obamacare, but the reality is, even if we take the Senate, we won't have the supermajority that's needed to override a presidential veto, and he's already told us he has a pen and a phone. We have to be proactive. Do things such as allow health savings accounts to pay for direct primary care services. There are many physicians around this area that are already moving to a cash for payment system, and it's much less expensive, as much as 60% less than our current insurance plans. We must reform this bill.
Mr. Levene.
I'm the only candidate who has actually suffered under the national health system. My teeth will prove that. The Obamacare system is moving gradually towards a single-payer system, which is a national health service, where the insurance companies will be taken out of the loop and it'll strictly be a taxpayer-funded insurance program. I am vehemently opposed to Obamacare because of my personal experience, something that the other people on this panel have not ever had. The only opportunity to repeal it is to wait until Republicans control the presidency as well as the House and the Senate. Otherwise, President Obama will veto any bills. However, it is important that the Republicans continue to press against any expansion of the Affordable Care Act, which they will.
Thank you. Colonel Mrozinski.
Thank you. This is two subjects that I've written on in the Affordable Care Act, and one of them was on the single payer that there was an attempt to do. Ladies and gentlemen, again, goes back to leadership. We can't obviate that we just lost the opportunity in the Senate to overturn it. I go back and say again, don't send any more ingredients to make and drink the Kool-Aid in D.C. Send someone there who's actually going to do as they say. So first off, it's a leadership issue. We have to do as we say. We had an opportunity and we missed it. Of course, just as I have, defund, repeal, replace. And it does take a supermajority if you're afraid of a presidential veto. Where have we seen the courage? Where have we seen it in our own house? It's a leadership problem. So as I've articulated about the Affordable Care Act, from telemedicine, how to make it better, not the Affordable Care Act, but how to take care and fix medical in this country. We need the leadership. And I can tell you, the only one here with a health background who's worked in health education and welfare before it became Health and Human Services, I will do that.
Thank you, Colonel. Thank you, sir. Ms. Pridemore.
The U.S. House of Representatives has voted over 40 times to repeal Obamacare. So we can't all come up here and say that repealing is the answer. Repealing on the House side's been done, but it's going to require all of us that want to see Obamacare abolished and other solutions be implemented to be able to elect Republicans not only in the Senate, but take back the White House in 2016 and stop a Hillary presidency. For starters, I want us to start leading with solutions. I really like Congressman Tom Price's Empowering Patients First Act. It allows us to be able to keep our insurance, to be able for it to be portable. It maintains the fact that a healthcare decision is between a physician and between the patient, and government stays out of it. I also like the fact that it allows us to be able to buy insurance across state lines, and it covers people with pre-existing conditions. I encourage you to look into that. It's a really strong solution.
Mr. Lindsey.
Well, I've already started with the solution. This year at the Georgia General Assembly, I was the author of the Lindsey Amendment. The Lindsey Amendment was attached to a bill, and basically what it does is it allows the state of Georgia to stand up to Obamacare and say we're not going to be forced, either the state of Georgia or any local entity, to use state or local taxpayer money to help promote Obamacare. That was the first thing that we did. That was the first shot across the bow. The second shot across the bow, I was the co-sponsor of this, was HB 990, which provided that General Assembly, and not the governor alone, would be the one to make the decision regarding the expansion of Medicaid here in Georgia, given what an enormous burden it would be on our state financially. So I've already started working on that issue. The third thing we need to do, and Bob actually touched on this, is start working through the appropriation process until we can take the White House in terms of chiseling away at Obamacare in the short run. And part of that, folks, and I need y'all's commitment on this, whoever is the nominee for the U.S. Senate, we're going to back him and get him passed. We need a Republican senator up there as well. The third thing we need to do is start working toward those long-term solutions in terms of replacing Obamacare with something that's workable. And Tricia touched on that, and I agree with what she said on that. Thank you very much.
You bet. I want to ask a fairly easy, well, I would think it would be a fairly easy question, and perhaps a little mind wash, you know, to wash the taste of that last question out of your minds. And that question I would ask is, who in the current Congress would you find admirable? Who would you ally yourself with in the current Congress? You don't have to take your entire time, we'll just move on to more questions. Mr. Loudermilk.
I've had the opportunity to get to know several very admirable members of Congress who are toeing the line, who have the vision that we have, that America, our government should be small, and they want to turn the tide of big government. I tell you, one of those that I'm very, very impressed with, I just met with him last Tuesday up in Washington, D.C., is Trey Gowdy. Trey has just been appointed to head the Benghazi investigation, and I tell you what, if anybody's going to get to the bottom of it, Trey will do it. And we're so honored that we have somebody not only like Trey Gowdy leading that, but that he's also endorsed our campaign and is coming on board as a full member of the campaign. But people like Trey Gowdy who will stand up to this administration, who will stand up to the pressures that are pushed upon him, that is exactly what we need in Congress.
And Mr. Levene.
Well, I do not like any of them. Here's how it works. First of all, my former campaign manager from Washington, D.C. said to me, here's how you win an election. Find out what the public wants to hear, then you tell it to them. They say, hey, here's something that wants exactly what I want. They elect you, and once you're in for life. I object to that. I object to nepotism, which is where you can accumulate huge amounts of money in your campaign fund, and then you can turn it over to your children so they also become elected for life. So my key and my actual plans, if you go to my website, are practical solutions for how to remove the current crop of congressmen and women once they've served anywhere between 8 and 12 years, depending on which house they're in. We need to clean house, bring in fresh blood, and then rotate the people in Congress rather than these people becoming permanent fixtures, which they are. So none of them is my answer.
Colonel Mrozinski.
Well, I like my delegation first. I think your state, you're serving in your delegation. I think the other 13 districts is where you start. But as far as one particular individual, no. We've seen where it's taken us when we latch on to somebody, we get increasing debt, where somebody says, tell you how to vote. I go up there, I'm going up as a clean slate, and I'm going up to support my Georgia delegation and work with them for the core to come up with the foreign policy issues, the national energy plan that we need to have. And the thing is in the healthcare. Oh yes, it's my delegation. It's one unit, and that's what we need to do.
Thank you. Ms. Pridemore.
I've been blessed to have the support of many of the House Republican women. There are only 19 of them all across the Republican caucus, and they've really been a great support system for me. In many cases, they were the first Republican women elected from their states as well, and they've taught me how to walk in their shoes. However, I would probably say that locally here in Georgia, I'm fond of Congressman Westmoreland. He's got blue-collar roots just like me. He's very conservative, works hard, but really represents the interests of the people that live in his district.
Mr. Lindsey?
Thank you. I would cite two individuals here in the state of Georgia that I've worked with extensively over the years. The first one is Tom Price, because he's a policy wonk. He understands that it's not enough to simply say no to bad solutions, but you've got to say, you've got to come up with a viable alternative, such as what he's come up with a viable alternative to Obamacare. And I admire his efforts to come up with a detailed solution along those lines. That's number one. And number two, and I do agree with Tricia on Lynn Westmoreland. He's somebody else who I've worked with extensively over the years. And I admire him especially because of his work dealing with the Intelligence Committee, because he understands that there are people out there who, quite frankly, want to kill us and want to destroy our way of life. We've got to stand up strong to them. And that's why he's worked so hard on trying to come up with the real answers regarding Benghazi. And that's why he's been working real hard to make sure that you and I stay safe against the wolves that are barking at our doors internationally. So those are the two that I would cite. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Barr.
Thank you. There are a lot of folks that I had the honor of working with in Washington during the time that I served previously representing the 7th District. Some that I wish were no longer there, that are still there, that I've worked with. But there are some good men and women in Washington. I would, for example, look forward to working once again with Darrell Issa, the chair of the Oversight Committee, Government Reform and Oversight Committee. I would look forward to working on the other side of the Capitol with Rand Paul, who stands firmly for the Constitution and who actually, even more so than a lot of others up there who vote the right way, actually knows how to get things done, knows how to articulate the issues, and knows how to get things done. That to me is the real key. It's not just saying the right thing. It's not just voting the right way. It's saying the right thing, voting the right way, and knowing how to get things done. Thank you.
Thank you. I'd like to ask one final question. In many cases, your campaign websites and literature focus on the repeal of the Affordable Care Act, otherwise known as Obamacare, implementation of the so-called fair tax, and your positions regarding abortion. These are issues that have bitterly divided Congress, in some cases for decades. As a result, I think we can all agree that Congress has become gridlocked, and its members are now among the least popular people on the planet. Their approval rating is lower than that of root canals, peg legs, colonoscopies, and cockroaches. What will you do to make Congress more effective, if not more acceptable, in its work on behalf of the American people? Mr. Levene.
First thing we have to do is fix the economy. All of the other candidates talk about having a balanced budget amendment, reducing the expenses, and so on and so forth. Once somebody goes to Washington, generally that does not happen. It's all spend, 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 spend. Having money donated by special interest groups to your campaign fund, even though you're not running for Congress, they still pour in huge amounts of money. The way you increase the GDP is really simple, and it's all on my website. I have over 200 articles that I've actually written about specific policy issues. First thing you do is you eliminate federal corporate taxes, so the United States becomes the world's largest tax haven. Trillions of foreign money will come here and be invested in new facilities that will create huge numbers of jobs, millions of jobs. That's what's most important. Second is you help people leave by canceling congressional pensions when they don't leave voluntarily after either 8 or 12 years. That was easy. And that was easy, so I guess I now tell you.
Thank you, sir. Colonel Mrozinski.
Well, we're endowed by our Creator, and I think that's a starting place. I'm not ashamed to say that I support from life until death. I did that with my mother, retired from the career that I loved. Folks, when transportation was an issue in Georgia 4.5 years ago, I wrote that we were a donor state. Now we have legislation. And I wasn't even in an elected office. I know that when I get there, I will be able to do those policy issues. I will be able to implement it. It's leadership. And if you have command of the issues, whether it's foreign policy or having worked with the State Department on sanctions and counterterrorism, oh, I know the enemy. And I know China. I've published internationally on it. And it's used in the State Department, and it's used in the Pentagon to determine the model of our enemies. I will bring that to bear, and I guarantee you this, for the veterans and the families, I will fix it. I did the 10-point plan. I will make it and implement that. We'll make sure. Leadership. God bless.
Thank you, Colonel. Ms. Pridemore.
I believe that you can change the tone and tenor of Congress by serving people. This is service. This is serving the people that live and work and raise families in this district. It's serving people that want to be able to pass on a better country and the same freedoms and way of life onto their children and onto their grandchildren. I believe that it's time that we have some hope in this nation. All is not gone. All is not lost. And I think that together, we can be bigger than this one president. Our nation, our freedoms, everything that we hold so true is bigger than whoever is in that White House. It hasn't went away. So as your member of Congress, I'll serve you, and I'll serve the people of this district. We have amazing people, especially with KBA, that have big hearts. And I want to see the next member of Congress take an active role in the community, help the people that are in need. We're incredibly blessed to live here. And I want to be sure that we can do whatever we can to export that same attitude and those same values, not only to Washington, but nationwide.
Thank you, ma'am. Mr. Lindsey.
For 10 years in the Georgia House, I have been successful because I have embraced the philosophy of addition and multiplication in politics rather than the policy of division and subtraction. That's how you get things done. And you do that by focusing not just on wedge issues that you cited, but also on what I call gateway issues. Gateway issues are issues that you go out and try to find common ground on. It was a gateway issue that led me to fight for the charter school amendment here in Georgia. It was a gateway issue that led me to fight on human trafficking. It was a gateway issue that led me to fight for more open government. On the federal level, we need to similarly fight for what I call gateway issues that will bring common ground, dealing with overregulation. Overregulation is not a Republican or Democratic problem. It's not known by demographics. It basically affects everyone who tries to start a business. I could not start the business today that I started 24 years ago and have successfully built because of overregulation. That's the sort of issue that we need to be focusing on to bring people together and to build the kind of nation that we all want.
Thank you, sir. Mr. Barr.
When I served previously on the House Judiciary Committee, I had the opportunity to debate on numerous occasions Chuck Schumer, Barney Frank, Sheila Jackson Lee. I've had a root canal, and it ain't even close. Give me the root canal. It is awful up there, but that is not to say that we can't get things done. We can get things done. What it takes is the experience, the commitment to our conservative leadership, to our conservative principles, knowing where to go to get things done, to move that agenda forward, to move that conservative agenda forward, to know how to work with people. And that comes from having been there, in that arena, not in some other arena, in that arena. That's where you develop the skills, where you learn where things are, what levers to push to move our conservative agenda forward. And you have to know how to go around the Chuck Schumers, around the Barney Franks, around the Sheila Jackson Lees. I know that. I've done there. I've been there. I've beaten them. And I ask for your vote to do it again.
And Mr. Loudermilk.
Lee, thank you for that question. We have to look at who is it that Congress is unpopular with? It's those of you sitting here. There's a lot of organizations and groups that think Congress is doing a great job. Just go to Washington, D.C. and walk around and look at all the big business and the PACs and all the special interests that are there. They're very pleased with what's going on. I was in Washington, D.C. back in January for a national press conference when Pridemore named me one of the top 5 candidates in the nation. I brought up these very issues that you talked about today. And a reporter came up to me afterwards and said, Barry, if Washington is so messed up, why do you want to be part of it? And I said, I really don't. But my children deserve better than what we're passing on to them. It's as many Republicans as it is Democrats. We can push, we can name call Barack Obama, but it wasn't just Democrats that gave us an $18 trillion debt. We have to have a vision of what America should be, what America can be, and work together to focus on that, focus on representing the people. A government of the people, not what we have now, a government over the people.
That was easy.
Thank you. And now we will move right into the closing. And you'll each have 2 minutes to close. We'll begin with Mr. Lindsey.
Thank you once again for being our moderator, and thank you all very much for listening, and thank you once again for the folks who have organized this. Someone asked me not too long ago, what is the great distinguished point between me and my very fine opponents? And it boils down to this. This was the pen that the governor signed the Lindsey Amendment with this year. In the end, it's not just about what you believe, because we're all rock-solid conservatives. It's not what you say in a press conference or go out with a rally. It's what you do when you go into the room and you fight for those principles that you think are so important that need to be changed in our society. Take a look at folks' past, because that's a great indicator on the future. I've been there. I've been the one actually in that room fighting for those principles, to take on Obamacare, to fight for a balanced budget amendment, to cut spending in this state in order to balance our budget, to fight for charter schools, to fight for greater education reform, to fight for infrastructure needs. It's hard work, folks, and it's a lot harder than simply standing in front of a microphone. And we need to start sending folks to Washington who understand that this is tough and it's hard, and it's time for us to send folks to Washington who are serious about changing the direction of our country. And you're not going to get that by simply having people who simply want to go to Washington and have their name in print. You're going to have folks who want to go to Washington and actually sit down and do the hard things of negotiating, sometimes with people that we don't necessarily agree with every day. Because we understand that your enemy today may be your closest ally tomorrow. In 10 years in the House, I've been successful because of 4 principles I've shown over the years, 4 attributes rather. 1, I've shown I have the patience to listen. Number 2, I've shown I have the strength to lead. Number 3, I've shown that I have the wisdom to negotiate without compromising my principles. And last but not least, I've shown that I have the strength to stay the course when times get tough. Thank you, and God bless you for being here tonight.
Thank you, sir. Mr. Loudermilk.
Growing up here in Georgia, my father instilled in me and my mother a set of values that we've passed on to our children, that put God first in everything you do, serve others before you serve yourself, and that standing for what is right isn't always easy, but it's always the right thing to do. Now, my dad was a World War II veteran, served in the Battle of the Bulge and D-Day, and he saw the worst of humanity. But he always was very positive, because he said, son, always keep your eye up on your cause, not your circumstance, and you can prevail. We had another rule in our house, which was no complaining. He said, if there was something you don't like, you've got 2 choices. You can do something to change the situation, or just accept it as inevitable and go on with your life. In 2004, I took my father's advice when I saw my state government going in the wrong direction. And I took those values, and I took my experience as a husband and father, as a veteran, as a business owner, and also an employee to the state capitol, where for 9 years I served the state, and became known as one of the foremost conservative leaders in this state, because I consistently stood on conservative values. You know, it's amazing that every 2 years, everyone becomes a conservative. But if you go back and you look at my record, it's a solid, consistent record of conservative votes, conservative values. For every tax increase that was proposed, so yes, under Republican leadership, I stood firm on my beliefs and my firm foundation. We must have solid, consistent conservative leadership that has the vision of what America can be and should be. Our children deserve better than what we're passing on to them. Because of that consistent stance that I have, and most everybody here is interviewed with many different PACs and many different organizations, I have been endorsed by more conservative organizations than any other candidate in the entire nation. In fact, Senate Conservatives Fund recently named me the #2 conservative candidate in the nation. We can take this nation back. We must, and give our children a nation that is safe, secure, and full of opportunity. God bless you. Stand with Barry.com.
Ms. Pridemore.
Thank you to KBA and the KBA leadership for holding this forum this evening. And thank you to all of you guys for coming out and making a point to learn more about the candidates and being an informed voter. I wear a pin tonight that was given to me on this campaign from Rachel Smith. She's the wife of former Cobb Commission Chairman Earl Smith. Earl Smith is known for the Strand Theater, Cobb Energy Center. He led our county through a point in time when we had tremendous growth. When people were moving here because we had a great place to live and bottom line, geography's on our side. He did it with those conservative principles. This pin is a gold elephant with glasses. He bought it for Rachel at the 1964 Republican Convention to honor Barry Goldwater. When Rachel gave it to me, she said, "It's time for a new generation of leaders in Cobb County. It's time for people that truly understand the needs and the hearts of this community, for people that want to hold firm to their conservative principles and that are going to fight for us and fight for the future of our country." Now, I don't want to talk to you tonight about jewelry. I want to talk to you about your vote. And I would be honored to have your vote. And I would be honored to work for you in Congress. As a third-generation small business owner, I can tell you one thing. What we need more of in Washington is less Washington. And I'm going up there to represent our interests so that we can make sure that we can continue to be the land of the free and the home of the brave. My website is pridemoreforcongress.com. I humbly ask for your support in this election. Call me, tweet me, Facebook me, whatever. What's most important is that we connect. Thank you all so much, and go Owls.
Mr. Levene.
I'm in the IT business. I've been in the IT business for 30 years, dealing with virtualized servers and desktops and whatever. My customers come to me with solutions. For the past 30 years, they say, here's the problem, and I look into it and I say, here is a solution. I can do exactly the same in Washington. I would urge you to visit my website, and the easiest way to find it is to just Google my name, and you'll find huge numbers of hits from all over the world, not just in the 11th district, which is common for a congressional race, but all over the world that are actually following what I want to do. And the reason they're following it, ladies and gentlemen, is I actually offer solutions. And the over 200 articles that I've written have numbered or solutions. Here's what we need to do to solve our problems. The biggest problem we have is our gross domestic product. It's not great enough. Just a few days ago, it was reported that while we thought China was going to exceed our GDP at the end of this decade, it's now the end of this year. December of this year, China will become the biggest the industrial country in the world, and they're accelerating away from us. I have a huge debt to repay this country because you've let me be a citizen. I've done very well here, and I love this country. I do not want to see it get into number 2 position. If that happens, we will lose the dollar as the world's reserve currency. If that happens, we're in big trouble. It happened to Britain in 1944, which is when the US dollar took over. And you can see Britain started its decline and the US took off. It may reverse. I can fix that. So please visit the website, AlanLeveneForCongress.com. See why I'm getting all these hits. But Google everybody else's name as well, and you'll be really surprised. Thank you.
Thank you. And Mr. Barr.
Thank you all. I've known many of you since I had the honor of serving as President Reagan's U.S. Attorney for the Northern District of Georgia. When President Reagan nominated me, or told me he was going to nominate me as U.S. Attorney for the Northern District of Georgia, he didn't say, Barr, I want to nominate you, I'm going to nominate you as U.S. Attorney because you're the kind of guy that's going to just sit back, take it easy, avoid the light, avoid the heat, do what needs to be done, but don't make any waves. No, that was not the kind of President Reagan, the kind of President Ronald Reagan was, and it was not the kind of U.S. Attorney that I was. Everybody in this room may not agree with every person that we put away, but you knew that when I ran that office, when I had the honor of serving as your United States Attorney, we went after the bad guys, and we got the bad guys. We went after the Colombian drug cartel. We had to have police protection at our house. We went after the corrupt politicians. We went after the money launderers. Several years later, when the people of the 7th District honored me to serve in the United States House of Representatives, not one person said, Bob, we're going to vote for you because you're the kind of guy that's just going to go up there, not make waves, just sort of sit back, take it easy, vote along the party lines, move up the ladder. No. People of the 7th District, and I suspect the people of this 11th District are exactly the same. They tell me, and they will vote for me, to represent them in the Congress of the United States of America, precisely because I don't sit back. I do make waves. But I make waves for a purpose. And that purpose is to fight the liberals in Washington and to move our agenda forward. Not to fight a fight just to fight a fight, but to fight a fight and win and move our agenda forward. I'm Bob Barr, and I ask for your vote to represent the 11th District in the Congress of the United States of America. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Barr. And Larry Mrozinski.
Every 2 to 4 to 6 years, we become disappointed and disenfranchised. Career politicians. Endorsements is the mortar that holds the brick together. I stand on my character, and I stand on where I have been. I do not seek those endorsements because they become paydays for somebody else. I've only sought one, deliberately, to fill out a form for another, George White's life. Ladies and gentlemen, we need to break that hold. And there's veterans in this room, and we all know families that we have that fidelity. We know what the truth is. And I know throughout my career, sitting across the table from the Adolf Putins and the others, how to note deceit. Note deceit either amongst us or those across to our enemies standing with us like for our allies against the enemy. Ladies and gentlemen, this is about our families. This is about our future. This is about who we are and doing the right thing. If character is what you are seeking and you want the truth, I stand before you to deliver the finest congressman that you've been waiting for in your lifetime to do as he says, to come back and in a short period of time to deliver what I promise. And that's connectivity to you and to your families. If you trusted me for nearly 30 years, trust me, I will take care of the business at hand for the people. I will deliver. I have a track record on that. And my time working to serve you rivals the time that's up here altogether in public service. God bless you, ColonelLarry.com. Ladies and gentlemen, I am just having so much fun. I want to be your congressman.
Let's give them all a hand, ladies and gentlemen.